Millionaire thought she was in a coma until his pregnant wife logged into his bank account. Have you ever heard a secret so shocking it sent tremors through an entire family? This story is no ordinary tale of wealth and jealousy. It's a swirl of hidden identities, breathtaking deceit, and a pregnant wife's startling discovery in her millionaire husband's bank account. When James Harrington, a wealthy entrepreneur in London's high society, believed his mistress lay in a coma, he thought his perfect life would remain neatly under wraps. But a single login by his pregnant wife, Elizabeth, unleashed a storm of buried truths. Brace yourselves. This unfolding drama will drag you through betrayal, obsession, and desperate ambitions gone terribly awry. James Harrington was the sort of man people either idolized or envied. Tall, confident, and impeccably dressed, James came from old money but built even greater wealth on his own. He was known to sign deals that turned entire industries on their heads. In some circles, he was referred to as the Golden Touch because anything he invested in thrived. Paparazzi flashed their cameras at him when he emerged from charity galas. Business journalists devoted countless articles to his strategies. He had not just one penthouse in London's upscale Mayfair district, but also a sprawling estate in the English countryside. Yet behind this glamorous front lurk secrets few knew. The public witnessed the perfect facade, a self-made millionaire married to a poised wife, Elizabeth Harrington, who was glowing with pregnancy. To outsiders, the couple seemed an ideal match, two successful, refined individuals whose union promised a bright future. Elizabeth came from a respectable lineage as well. Her father, Sir Edmund Blackwood, was a renowned heart surgeon who had saved lives in the highest circles of power. She embodied elegance and dignity, an expectant mother with her feet planted firmly in the realm of polite society. On a chilly autumn afternoon, the Harringtons hosted a charity luncheon at their estate. The property, called Rosemore Manor, was an old-world country house enveloped by acres of manicured gardens. Guests arrived in luxury cars, stepping out in sophisticated suits and dresses. Everyone marveled at the curated rose garden, the symmetrical hedges, and the tranquil fountain in the courtyard. Among the guests was Michael Bingham, James's longtime friend, who had also served as best man at their wedding. There was Lady Catherine Stewart, a well-known patron of the arts, sporting an elegant brooch rumoured to be worth a small fortune. Finally, there was Alexandra Lexi Delacroix, a rising fashion designer who had James as her silent financial backer. Elizabeth entertained guests, her smile radiant, exuding warmth that made everyone feel welcome. It was a picture of marital and social bliss. Yet, through the polite conversation, the popping champagne corks, and the hushed talk of philanthropic pursuits, a nervous flicker in James's eyes surfaced each time his phone buzzed in his pocket. He would discreetly check the message, then stuff the phone back in his jacket with a stiff expression. Something beyond the scope of perfect hospitality gnawed at him. As the event continued, Elizabeth's eyes narrowed slightly each time James grew tense at a text. She was no fool. She sensed an unease in her husband. But it was easy enough to mistake it for stress about business deals or something to do with the brand new software venture James was launching. Little did she know, those messages had nothing to do with software or philanthropic commitments. Instead, they were updates concerning a young woman named Cassandra Delgado, a woman whose existence was carefully shielded from Elizabeth. A woman James believed to be in a coma at a private hospital across town. Cassandra Delgado was a name known only to a select few in James's circle: his personal assistant, Victoria Mills, and a private doctor, Dr. Alan Friedman, employed to watch over Cassandra's health. James had met Cassandra 6 months earlier at a finance conference in Paris, ironically the same weekend Elizabeth discovered she was pregnant. Cassandra was not just another fling. She was a brilliant equity analyst who had enthralled him with her wit and sharp insight about European markets. Their conversations had sparked a potent attraction James couldn't resist. Their affair played out in secret rendezvous, discreet hotel suites in foreign cities, late-night dinners at restaurants known for their absolute confidentiality, and impassioned weekends in James's private chalet in the Alps. For a while, it was simply a thrilling romance. Cassandra wasn't content to be just a mistress. She was ambitious. She challenged James's decisions in business, questioned his philanthropic methods, and occasionally even criticized how he balanced personal responsibilities. There was a level of engagement and unpredictability that mesmerized him, but then the fateful accident occurred. Cassandra was returning from an investment conference in Geneva when her car skidded on a patch of black ice and slammed into a guardrail. The crash left her with severe head trauma. She was rushed to a private clinic in London, where James footed the astronomical medical bills. The doctors placed her in an induced coma to help her recover from swelling in her brain. Initially, James feared that if his wife discovered Cassandra or her expensive care, everything he had worked for his marriage, his carefully curated public image, would come crashing down. And so James orchestrated a cover-up that was as elaborate as it was callous. He paid Dr. Friedman and the clinic's administration handsomely to keep Cassandra's presence off any public records. Using shell companies, he transferred funds to the clinic each month, ensuring top-notch care. To the outside world, Cassandra Delgado had practically vanished. Cassandra's friends assumed she had gone off the grid, perhaps traveling or shifting jobs. James had confiscated her phone and personal belongings, feeding bits of misinformation wherever necessary. In his mind, James told himself that paying for her care was the right thing to do. He rationalized that he was protecting both Cassandra and Elizabeth, safeguarding them from scandal. Guilt for the accident gnawed at him, though logically he knew he had not caused her to drive on that cursed patch of ice. Still, had it not been for his encouragement, she might never have rushed to catch that late-night flight from Geneva. More than guilt, though, James was driven by fear of exposure. When he received daily updates that Cassandra lay comatose, stable yet unresponsive, he felt a twisted sense of relief. He convinced himself that, for the moment, the problem was contained, allowing him to keep living his life as the perfect husband and soon-to-be father. He never dared visit Cassandra in person for fear someone, maybe a nurse or a random onlooker, would recognize him. No, he planned to wait until after Elizabeth gave birth, after the dust settled, to figure out how to handle Cassandra's eventual recovery. He'd pay for her rehabilitation, give her a handsome settlement if necessary. Then she would disappear from his life. That was James's plan until it all unraveled. 2 weeks after the charity luncheon, Elizabeth was about 6 months pregnant. Her morning sickness had subsided, leaving her more energetic. She filled her days with prenatal yoga classes and working with interior designers to perfect the nursery at Rosemore Manor. Pale yellow walls, hand-painted murals of whimsical animals, plush carpets shipped from Turkey, nothing but the best for the awaited heir or heiress to the Harrington fortune. As for James, he was flying under the radar, busily ensuring the final touches on his new tech project, a software suite that promised to revolutionize data analytics in the finance world. He spent days locked in high-level meetings and nights locked in his office, answering calls from Dr. Friedman about Cassandra's condition. Then, one evening at Rosemore Manor, the landline rang. Elizabeth, sipping herbal tea, answered. The person on the other line was Dr. Friedman, using the private number he wasn't meant to dial without explicit instruction. Panicking, Friedman said, "Hello, this is an urgent message for Mr. Harrington. May I speak to him?" "It's about the patient, Cassandra Delgado." Elizabeth froze, confusion swirling in her mind. Why was a doctor calling the house line about someone named Cassandra Delgado? She gathered herself quickly. I'm sorry, Dr. Friedman, did you say? My husband is busy. Can you tell me what this is about? Flustered, Friedman stammered something about a misdial, then hung up abruptly. Elizabeth set the receiver down slowly, her heart pounding. Cassandra Delgado. The name meant nothing to her. Yet the mention of patient roused a storm of questions. She marched into James's study, where he was poring over financial reports. You had a call, she said, voice tight with concern. Dr. Friedman. He mentioned something about a patient named Cassandra Delgado. James's face went ashen. In that split second, Elizabeth saw the flicker of guilt, fear, and something she recognized as panic. He tried to cover it with a laugh. Cassandra Delgado? I've never heard of her. Probably a telemarketer or scam call. Let me see if I can find out. He gently maneuvered Elizabeth out of his study and closed the door. She stood outside, heart pounding. Something was off. Telemarketers didn't usually identify themselves as doctors discussing a patient. And James's behavior was telling. She wasn't sure what she suspected, but she felt an uneasy stirring in the pit of her stomach. Perhaps the stress of pregnancy heightened her intuition. She resolved to watch James more carefully. The next day, James departed early for a business trip to Berlin, at least. That's what he told Elizabeth. In reality, he was meeting with Dr. Friedman at a hidden clinic in London. Tucked away on a quiet street in Kensington, this clinic catered to high-profile clients who wanted absolute privacy. James slipped through a side entrance, wearing a cap and dark sunglasses. In a dimly lit office, Dr. Friedman looked uneasy. I'm sorry, Mr. Harrington, I had an emergency last night. Cassandra had a sudden fever. I was trying to reach you on your private cell. When it went to voicemail, I thought I'd try the home number. I didn't realize your wife would pick up. James glowered. We can't have any more mistakes, Friedman. If my wife finds out about Cassandra, everything I've built could implode. But more importantly, how is Cassandra's condition? Friedman exhaled nervously. She's improving. She's been stirring more, responding to stimuli. There's a possibility she could come out of the coma sooner than we anticipated. That news, which should have been cause for celebration, filled James with dread. That's good, he forced himself to say. Keep me updated. Make sure no one visits her. I'll handle the finances, but I can't be seen here often. Dr. Friedman nodded. Of course, Mr. Harrington. I'll keep everything confidential. Returning to his car, James was overcome by a swirl of worry. If Cassandra regained consciousness, what story would she tell? Would she accuse him of abandoning her? Of a cover-up? She could demand money. Or maybe she'd keep quiet if he paid her enough. He tried to quell his anxiety by reminding himself that he was still in control. After all, he had connections, he had wealth. He would find a way out of this. Back at Rosemore Manor, Elizabeth's day took a fateful turn. She decided to finalize the nursery budget, a seemingly mundane task. Typically, her husband's personal assistant handled financial transactions, but Elizabeth wanted to oversee the details personally. She tried to log into their joint online bank account, but found the password had been changed. Confused, she tried James's usual set of passcodes, birthdays, anniversary dates, random numbers, but nothing worked. Elizabeth frowned. It was peculiar. They had always had open access to each other's accounts. They were a family. Why would James abruptly change their shared password? Her mind flashed back to the phone call from Dr. Friedman. Could the two be connected? She called James only to get his voicemail. This was uncharacteristic, given how quickly he usually responded to her calls. She left a message. James, it's Elizabeth. I tried to get into our bank account, but it's not letting me. Did you change the password? Please call me. Several hours passed. No return call. Her nerves frayed. Elizabeth rang Michael Bingham, James's old friend and business confidant. Michael seemed taken aback by her worry. James told me he was dealing with some sensitive business transactions, Michael said. Maybe that's why he changed the password. Try not to stress, it can't be anything major. But Elizabeth couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was afoot. The next day, she decided to tackle the problem more directly. She drove to Harrington Capital's headquarters, a sleek skyscraper in central London. Inside the labyrinth of glass, walled offices, employees bustled about with hushed urgency. Elizabeth was well known, so the receptionist allowed her to go straight up to James's office on the executive floor. James wasn't there, nor was his assistant. The door was locked. Through the frosted glass, Elizabeth spotted a laptop on the desk. Anxiety gnawed at her. She felt uneasy snooping around, but a stronger need to know the truth compelled her. She reached for the spare key hidden behind a potted plant. She knew of its existence from casual mentions over the years. She entered the office, closed the door behind her, and approached the desk. The laptop was locked, demanding a password. Determined, she tried a variation of significant dates, typed systematically, word by word. Finally, something clicked. The password was the day they found out she was pregnant. The screen unlocked. Elizabeth's heart hammered. She noticed a folder labeled Private Delgado. Confusion roiled. Was Delgado the same name she had heard on the phone? Without hesitating, she clicked it open. A flurry of documents appeared: medical bills, statements from a private clinic, transactions to a doctor, Friedman, and other references to Cassandra Delgado. Terrified and fascinated, Elizabeth skimmed through. Her eyes widened at repeated monthly payments, extraordinarily large sums for a private ward, intensive neurological care, advanced treatment. She covered her mouth as her mind pieced together a horrifying puzzle. Cassandra Delgado was in a private clinic. James was footing the bill. The first payments started about 6 months ago, the same period that coincided with Elizabeth's pregnancy announcement. The medical documents contained phrases like accident, trauma, severe head injury, induced coma. Elizabeth sank into James's desk chair, trembling. Why would her husband pay for a stranger's long-term hospital care? Why was everything so secretive? She stared at the bank transactions, noticing that they originated from a separate account in James's name, one she had never heard of before, an account that had shockingly high balances. The next evening, James returned home from his business trip, expecting a serene mansion and a warm welcome from his pregnant wife. Instead, he found Elizabeth in the lounge, perched on the edge of a sofa, her hands clasped over her belly as though shielding the baby from some intangible threat. A thick file of printouts rested beside her. "We need to talk," she said, her eyes blazing with anger and betrayal. "Who is Cassandra Delgado? Why are you sending thousands of pounds a month to pay for her care in a private clinic?" James's composure wavered. He had practiced 100 possible cover stories during his drive back, but Elizabeth's furious gaze shredded his mental scripts. He tried to deflect, to spin a narrative about charity or philanthropic responsibility. But Elizabeth cut him off with a tremor in her voice. "Don't lie to me." Realizing he could no longer feign innocence, James offered a curated version of the truth. He told her that Cassandra was a talented consultant he had been working with, that she got into a serious accident. He felt responsible because she was returning from a work trip on his behalf. So, out of guilt and duty, he covered her medical bills. Elizabeth listened, tears brimming. "And you had to hide it from me? Create a secret account, password protect everything? Pay off a doctor to keep it all quiet? That doesn't sound like a normal sense of responsibility. That sounds like an affair, James." He hesitated. The truth was that while Elizabeth was perceptive, she didn't know every detail yet. A wave of self-preservation overcame him. He tried to placate her with half-truths. "We got close while working together, but it was a lapse in judgment. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to find out. I was going to handle it myself. Elizabeth's tears spilled. You betrayed me while I've been pregnant with our child. I've stood by you, loved you, given you my trust. She clutched her abdomen as though feeling the baby's presence more acutely. I can't believe you'd do this. You've left me humiliated, James. In that moment, James realized how fragile his fortress was. For all his wealth and cunning, he had failed to keep his double life hidden. The love and respect that once bound them seemed to fracture before his eyes. He reached out to Elizabeth, but she shrank away, tears cutting sharp lines down her cheeks. This marriage, she said, voice trembling, is standing on very thin ice. If I discover anything else you're hiding, any more lies, I will walk away from you for good, and you will not see this child. With that, she retired to her bedroom, leaving James alone, the flickering fireplace reflecting the turmoil in his mind. He felt the pang of losing control, fear of losing the woman he still cared for, perhaps more than he realized. Yet, in the swirling chaos, he also felt the haunting presence of Cassandra, the mistress who might awaken any day. If Elizabeth discovered the depth of his involvement with her, the entire house of cards would topple. 2 days later, Elizabeth confided in her father, Sir Edmund Blackwood. Over tea in her father's study, tears running down her cheeks, she explained the situation in broad strokes, omitting certain details that made her feel ashamed. Sir Edmund listened gravely, his brow furrowed. I had a sense James was not the type to lead a straightforward life, Sir Edmund said, kindly but firmly. He's brilliant, driven, but also secretive. There's a reason his success soared so quickly. Elizabeth wiped her eyes. I still love him, Dad, but I need the whole truth. If I can't trust him, how can I raise a child with him? Sir Edmund placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Then find the truth. You're strong. You have resources. Use them. Spurred by her father's encouragement, Elizabeth decided to dig deeper. She wanted to confirm James's story that Cassandra Delgado had been a consultant for his firm and was now comatose. If that was all there was to it, an affair plus guilt, could she handle it? Possibly. But if James was hiding more, she had to know. So she hired a private investigator named Daniel Pendleton, famed for discretion and thoroughness. Pendleton pulled phone records, scoured flight manifests, and discreetly interviewed staff at Harrington Capital. The puzzle that formed was more damning than Elizabeth feared. James and Cassandra had been spotted in Paris, Rome, and the Swiss Alps, all at times that overlapped suspiciously with James's business trips. They had shared hotel suites, and Cassandra was seen wearing expensive jewelry that James must have gifted her. Even more disturbing was how meticulously James had orchestrated Cassandra's disappearance from public records after her accident. Pendleton uncovered a hidden web of shell companies channeling money into the private clinic, proving that James was funneling large sums to keep Cassandra's condition out of official hospital databases. Elizabeth's heartbreak deepened. It wasn't merely an affair, it was a labyrinth of lies, spanning at least 6 months. She felt betrayed, but a quiet, steely resolve took hold of her heart. She wasn't just a wife or a victim, she was the daughter of a knighted surgeon, a soon-to-be mother, a woman who deserved respect. She planned her next move carefully. If James insisted on subterfuge, then she would meet with Cassandra Delgado herself. And if Cassandra remained in a coma, perhaps Elizabeth would glean enough from medical staff to piece together the missing fragments. Under the guise of a routine obstetrics appointment in London, Elizabeth slipped away to Kensington and found the private clinic that Dr. Friedman ran. Using a fabricated story about being referred for a consultation, she convinced a young nurse that she needed to see Dr. Friedman. The nurse led Elizabeth down a hallway lined with glossy paintings of pastoral scenes. A subtle hush lingered in the corridors. When Dr. Friedman saw Elizabeth, he seemed to blanch. "Miss S. Harrington, this is unexpected. How can I help you?" Elizabeth, trembling with a mixture of fear and determination, said, "I know my husband is paying you to treat Cassandra Delgado. I want to see her. I have the right to know what's going on." Friedman tried to maintain composure, but sweat gathered on his brow. "Miss S. Harrington, this is highly irregular. I'm bound by patient confidentiality." Elizabeth's gaze sharpened. "Is the confidentiality greater than the hush money you're receiving from my husband? Because I promise you, if you don't let me see her, I will expose every financial transaction. I will drag this clinic and your name through every court in London." Flustered, Friedman hesitated. Finally, with trembling reluctance, he led Elizabeth to a small, private room. The beep of monitoring devices and the hush of ventilators filled the air. On the bed lay a young woman with bandages wrapped around her head and the fourth line in her arm. Her eyes were closed, her expression strangely serene amidst the medical machinery. Elizabeth approached the bed, heart pounding. Cassandra Delgado was beautiful, even in her vulnerable state. High cheekbones, long lashes, and an aura of intelligence in the lines of her face. Elizabeth's anger wavered into a wave of pity. Is this the woman James had risked everything for? "Yes, that's Cassandra Delgado," Friedman murmured. "She was in a severe accident. We had her in an induced coma for months. Recently, we began reducing sedation. There are signs of improvement, but it's slow." Elizabeth's throat tightened. A swirl of conflicting emotions arose: hurt, jealousy, compassion. She gently touched Cassandra's hand. It was warm. For a fleeting moment she wondered, did Cassandra love James? Did James truly love her? Or was this all just a reckless fling? She turned back to Friedman. "Will she recover?" He nodded hesitantly. "We're hopeful. There's still swelling in her brain, but she started to show reflex responses. She could wake up in days or weeks. Hard to predict. Sometimes patients need months of rehabilitation." Elizabeth swallowed hard. The knowledge that Cassandra might soon awaken brought a new kind of dread. If this woman regained consciousness, she might reveal every sordid detail of the affair. Elizabeth braced herself for an uncertain future, but she also felt a strange sense of power. She had seen Cassandra. This was no phantom mistress. She was a flesh and blood woman who might hold the key to unraveling James's carefully curated world of secrets. That evening, Elizabeth returned to Rosemore Manor and found James pacing in the study, his tie loosened, hair disheveled. He had apparently learned from Friedman about her visit to the clinic. The moment she stepped inside, James stormed toward her. "What were you thinking going there? Barging in on Friedman? You don't understand the damage you could cause." His anger ignited hers. "Oh, I understand plenty. I understand you had an extended affair, that you orchestrated a cover-up, that you funneled money through sham accounts to keep her out of sight. I understand you lied to me while I'm carrying your child." James's face contorted with guilt and frustration. "I never meant to hurt you. I was going to end it. Cassandra's accident changed everything. I felt responsible. Responsible or cornered?" Elizabeth shot back. "You could have told me the truth. Instead, you lied and lied, expecting me to remain in the dark while you played savior to your mistress." James's anger deflated. He sank into a chair, covering his face with his hands. "Elizabeth, I'm sorry. I can't undo it. I panicked. I was afraid to lose you, to lose my family, my reputation." She stood before him, arms folded protectively across her chest. "Well, here we are now. I'm not sure what to do. I've considered leaving you, but we have a child on the way. Do I want our baby to grow up without a father?" Tears welled in James's eyes. "I love you. I genuinely do. The affair was a catastrophic mistake. I tried to fix it. If you need me to sign anything, to put your name on all the accounts, to do whatever it takes to prove my loyalty, I will. Just don't leave me." Elizabeth watched him, pained. For all his wealth and brilliance, he suddenly looked small and pathetic. Part of her wanted to comfort him. The other part bristled at the notion of rewarding his deception. "We'll figure it out," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But from now on, no more secrets. That includes Cassandra Delgado, especially if she wakes up." Days passed. Elizabeth tried to maintain normalcy, focusing on her pregnancy and the daily rhythms of life at Rosemore Manor. Yet tension simmered beneath the surface. She avoided James as much as civility allowed, speaking to him only about baby necessities or household matters. At night, she stayed in a separate bedroom, unable to share the same bed with a man she felt she no longer recognized. Then, one morning, Dr. Friedman called. This time he reached Elizabeth on her cell phone by design, at her request. "Miss S. Harrington," he said, his voice urgent, "Cassandra Delgado has emerged from her coma. She's awake." Elizabeth's heart lurched. She thanked Friedman and hung up, shock waves rippling through her. She found James in his study. He looked up, wary. "What's wrong?" She bit her lip. "Cassandra's awake." His face paled. "When did this happen?" "Apparently, sometime late last night. She's conscious, though probably confused and fragile." James stood, restless. "I need to handle this." "She might." Elizabeth lifted her chin. "She might what? Expose you? Tell people the truth?" He shook his head. "I can't just abandon her. She was part of my life. But if I go there and someone sees me, the press..." Elizabeth drew a calming breath. "You orchestrated this for months. You can't hide behind fear now. If you want to talk to her, then do it." "But I'm going with you." James looked startled. "What? Why?" Elizabeth's voice wavered but held firm. "Because if you think I'm going to let you have a private little meeting with the woman you cheated on me with, you're dead wrong. If this marriage stands a chance, I need transparency, complete transparency." James reluctantly agreed. Within the hour, they arrived at the private clinic. Dr. Friedman led them to Cassandra's room, cautioning them that she was weak and disoriented. There, on the bed, Cassandra lay with her eyes partially open, an expression of confusion etched on her face. When they entered, Cassandra's gaze fluttered between them. Her voice, rasped by disuse, barely rose above a whisper. "James? Where am I?" James approached her, hesitantly taking her hand. "You're in a private clinic in Kensington. You had an accident, a car crash." Her eyes searched the unfamiliar surroundings. "I remember driving. Then impact." She looked at Elizabeth, perplexed. "Who is she?" James swallowed. "This is my wife, Elizabeth." A flicker of realization or heartbreak flared in Cassandra's eyes. "Your wife," she repeated softly, her voice thick with emotion. She tried to raise her body, but tubes and a sense of weakness held her down. "What's happening? Why am I here?" "James, what have you done?" Elizabeth stepped forward. "He's been paying for your care. You've been in a coma for months. I only found out a short while ago." Cassandra's eyes brimmed with tears. "A coma? So everything is real." Her gaze turned to James with an agonized confusion. "You promised me a future. I told you I didn't want to be someone's secret. And now your wife is here. You lied to me." James winced, unable to hide his shame. "Cassandra, I'm sorry." But Cassandra cut him off, her anger giving her a surprising burst of strength. "Don't say sorry. You put me here in this locked-up facility. No one could find me or visit me. Did you think I wouldn't wake up, or that I'd vanish?" Elizabeth's chest tightened with a pang of pity for the injured woman, but her own anger burned too. "I don't know what James promised you, Miss Delgado, but he's my husband. I didn't know you existed. You were hidden from me just like I was hidden from you." Cassandra closed her eyes, tears streaming down. "I believed him. He told me he would leave you, that I was the one he truly loved. An anguished sob broke from her. I gave up so much. I nearly died. Elizabeth stiffened at that revelation. Had James pledged to leave her? James frantically shook his head. Cassandra, I said things, but... Cassandra's fury exploded. Don't insult me. You said it again and again. You told me you were trapped in a loveless marriage, that you and Elizabeth only stayed together for the family's sake, that you wanted a divorce after the baby was born. You told me we'd be free to start a life together. Elizabeth felt as though the floor had opened beneath her. She shot James a look of raw betrayal. Is that true? He stammered. It was the heat of the moment. I wasn't thinking straight. I only said it to keep Cassandra from leaving me. Elizabeth's lips quivered in anger and sorrow. So, you promised her a future, all while I was pregnant with your child. And then, once she was out of commission, you never intended for her to be part of your life again. James pressed his hands to his temples. I didn't know what to do. Cassandra turned her face away, sobbing silently. Friedman hovered by the door, alarmed by the escalating tension. Elizabeth inhaled shakily, feeling protective of Cassandra despite her role as James's mistress. The heartbreak in the room felt suffocating. That's enough for today, Elizabeth declared, stepping toward Friedman. She needs rest. I'll ensure the bills remain paid, but from now on, I'll handle it personally. James, let's go. In that moment, Elizabeth assumed a mantle of power neither James nor Cassandra expected. She signaled that she, not James, would control the narrative. She didn't know exactly how things would unfold, but she knew that if she didn't assert her agency, now the chaos would consume her. Back home, Elizabeth stormed out of the car the moment they arrived at the estate. James followed, begging her to give him a chance to explain. Cassandra exaggerated, he argued. I never fully intended to divorce you. I was just caught up. It was an affair, not a new life plan. Elizabeth stared at him, tears burning in her eyes. I can't even look at you. I don't know which is worse, that you betrayed me, or that you used such blatant, manipulative lies on her. Both, I suppose. James pleaded. Elizabeth, the first beg you, don't give up on me. I'll do anything. She exhaled a shaking breath. Then be prepared for consequences. I'm not sure if we can salvage our marriage, but if we do, I'm setting the terms. She retreated to her separate bedroom, leaving James alone with his dread. Days melted into a strange routine. James tried repeatedly to apologize, but Elizabeth refused to speak about the affair. She spent her time finalizing her last trimester medical appointments and consulting with lawyers about her potential options. Meanwhile, she arranged for Cassandra's ongoing treatment, transferring the monthly payments from James's secret account to a new account she created in both her and James's names. If nothing else, it forced James to come to her for every transaction, ensuring she had control. Cassandra's condition improved. Friedman reported that her memory was returning in patchy fragments. The moment she felt strong enough to talk to reporters or lawyers, the scandal could explode. Gossip columns hungrily eyed James Harrington's personal life, suspecting rumors but lacking proof. Elizabeth dreaded a media frenzy, but steeled herself for the possibility. If that happened, she would protect herself and her child. James would have to face the consequences of his deceit. One afternoon, a few weeks after Cassandra regained consciousness, Elizabeth received an urgent call from Friedman. Miss S. Harrington, Miss Delgado is asking to see you. She says it's important. Elizabeth hesitated, but curiosity and compassion won out. She agreed and soon found herself again by Cassandra's bedside. This time, Cassandra was sitting up, propped against pillows, face pale but alert. She looked at Elizabeth with a quiet intensity. "Thank you for coming," Cassandra began softly. I wanted to apologize. I had no idea James was lying to us both so thoroughly." Elizabeth offered a wry, sad smile. I suspect he told each of us different stories. We both believed him. Cassandra swallowed hard. He told me you were controlling cold and that you were only staying with him out of obligation. He said your marriage was over long before we met. But seeing you, hearing everything, I realize he manipulated me. I wanted to hate you for being his wife, but now I see you're also a victim. Elizabeth felt tears welling in her eyes. I wish things had never come to this, but thank you for your honesty. Cassandra's lips trembled. He risked my life. He left me in this clinic as though I were some inconvenience. I feel like he tried to erase me once I was no longer useful or fun. Elizabeth nodded, acknowledging the heartbreak. I don't have an easy answer for you, but I promise you'll receive all the medical care you need. I won't let him abandon you. Cassandra's eyes shone with gratitude. Thank you. One more thing, I spoke with the doctors. They said the accident might have been less severe if I hadn't rushed that night. James had demanded I meet him in Geneva. In a way, he's directly responsible for why I took those roads so late. Elizabeth pressed her lips together. She felt a pang of sympathy for Cassandra, but also recognized the conversation was edging into legal territory. I understand, she said quietly. Do what you must to heal and move forward. Cassandra looked down, tears dripping onto the white hospital sheets. I plan to. I'm meeting with a lawyer to discuss my options. But please know, I won't do anything to intentionally hurt you or your child. Whatever I do, it's aimed at holding James accountable for what he did to me. Elizabeth's gaze grew distant, imagining the storm that was about to break over James's head. She simply nodded. I see. Thank you for telling me. Once again at Rosemore Manor, Elizabeth confronted James that evening. Cassandra is awake, stronger, and speaking to lawyers. She may sue you. I don't know if she can, but she might try. James went pale. Sue me for what? The accident was not my fault. Elizabeth gave him a bitter look. She believes you pressured her to travel under unsafe conditions. She also claims you effectively tried to imprison her in that clinic. It's complicated, but with enough evidence, this could become a high-profile case. He shook his head frantically. This can't happen. My reputation, my deals. I could lose everything. Elizabeth's voice was cold. Perhaps you should have thought about that before starting an affair and lying to everyone. She paused, then spoke the words that had been forming for weeks. I've consulted lawyers myself. If I want to, I can file for divorce and likely get custody of our child, considering your moral misconduct and attempts at deception. James's eyes widened in horror. Elizabeth, please. What about us, our baby? She swallowed, feeling a deep pain. Despite everything, part of me still wants our child to have a father. But I refuse to stay in a marriage built on lies. So here's my condition: full honesty financially, emotionally. You will put the estate, the business shares, all your assets into transparent accounts. I want them accessible in case you ever dare lie again. We will sign a post-nuptial agreement stating that if you commit another breach of trust, I have rights to the estate, and you will pay for Cassandra's full recovery with no strings attached. James looked both humbled and frightened. That's a lot to ask. Elizabeth's laugh was harsh. You took a lot from me. You took my faith, my sense of security. If you want to be in this marriage and be a father to our baby, you'll do it. He nodded, resigned. Yes, I'll do it. Just don't leave me. As Elizabeth turned to go, tears brimmed again. She realized her pregnancy hormones were making her even more emotional, but this was real heartbreak. She didn't know if she could ever truly forgive him, but for her child's sake, she was willing to try. In the weeks that followed, James complied with Elizabeth's demands. He met with lawyers, hammered out a post-nuptial agreement, and transferred partial ownership of his properties and accounts to Elizabeth. Business partners grumbled. Rumors swirled about the reason behind these abrupt changes. James put out statements claiming he was reorganizing his wealth for estate planning reasons. Meanwhile, Cassandra filed a personal injury lawsuit against James, accusing him of negligence and emotional distress. The tabloids caught wind of it, and soon James's carefully manicured public image began to crumble. Photos surfaced of James with Cassandra in Rome, fueling speculation. The press had a field day, painting him as a philandering millionaire who had driven his mistress into harm's way. Investors raised eyebrows. Stocks for Harrington Capital wavered. Elizabeth found herself in the crosshairs of gossip columns. They labeled her the long-suffering wife, humiliating her further. She shielded herself at Rosemore Manor, focusing on her final weeks of pregnancy. She avoided social media, ignoring the swirling rumors. Her only solace was that the baby was healthy, the doctor said. She often rested in the nursery, rocking in the chair, imagining a simpler future where the child could grow up in a stable household. James, for his part, seemed broken. He spent hours meeting with crisis PR teams, lawyers, and advisors, trying to salvage his reputation. At night, he returned home exhausted, exchanging only a few words with Elizabeth. The mansion felt like a silent battleground, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Despite the legal battles, Elizabeth made sure Cassandra's medical expenses were covered. Now in a rehabilitation center, Cassandra was learning to walk steadily again, regaining her life step by step. Elizabeth called occasionally to check on her progress. They were not friends, nor would they ever be, but there was a sense of mutual respect born from shared betrayal. Each was seeking to reclaim her life after James's duplicity. As winter approached, Elizabeth went into labor. A ferocious storm raged outside, rain lashing the windows of Rosemore Manor. James, frazzled and anxious, rushed Elizabeth to the hospital. Gone were the illusions of perfection. They arrived in the middle of the night, Elizabeth's contractions coming fast and furious. In the maternity ward, hours felt like days. Elizabeth grasped James's hand, tears of pain and fear mingling with residual anger. But in that crucible of raw emotion, amid the sting of contractions and the swirling hospital lights, something fragile but earnest emerged. A flicker of understanding that they were on the brink of a life-altering moment, a new life that transcended the tangled web of lies. Finally, at dawn, their baby was born, a beautiful girl with a strong, healthy cry. Exhausted, Elizabeth gazed upon their daughter, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. James was speechless, overcome by a wave of relief and awe. For a moment, the trials of the past months melted away. The baby was perfect. A new start, an innocent life untainted by scandal or heartbreak. Holding the baby in her arms, Elizabeth felt a sense of purpose that transcended everything else. She wasn't sure if her marriage would survive, but she knew her love for this tiny person would guide her choices going forward. James kneeled beside the hospital bed, tears on his cheeks, whispering apologies and promises. Elizabeth closed her eyes, listening but not yet ready to respond. The baby's small hand curled around her finger. In that moment, Elizabeth decided that above all else, she would protect her child's future, even if it meant leaving James eventually. But she would give him a chance to prove he could be the father their daughter deserved. Weeks later, Elizabeth left the hospital with her newborn, who they named Clara Rose Harrington, a nod to the estate's beloved rose gardens. They returned to Rosemore Manor, where a new nursery awaited. Elizabeth took joy in small moments. Clara's gentle coos, the late-night feedings, the sense of wonder that accompanied new motherhood. James tried his best to atone. He was present for every feeding, changed diapers, sang lullabies off-key, but with genuine devotion. The lawsuit with Cassandra was settled quietly out of court for a substantial sum. She used the money to build a new life far away from James's orbit, but occasionally sent Elizabeth updates on her continued recovery, never to gloat, but as a courtesy. Elizabeth appreciated the gesture, though it came tinged with sorrow. As time passed, the scandal receded from tabloid headlines. Another celebrity controversy overshadowed James's story, allowing him to gradually restore his reputation. The reorganization of his wealth, insisted upon by Elizabeth, remained in place. The memory of betrayal lingered, but in the hush of late-night feedings, Elizabeth saw glimpses of a changed man in James. Whether it was remorse, fatherly love, or both, he seemed determined to be a better person for Clara, if not for himself. Did Elizabeth fully forgive him? Such wounds are slow to heal, if they ever do completely, but for now, a fragile peace settled over Rosemore Manor. On sunny mornings, they would walk together through the rose garden, Elizabeth cradling Clara, James pushing the stroller, trying to find a sense of normalcy after a storm of lies. If love remained, it was scarred but perhaps more honest than before. Sometimes, late at night, Elizabeth would lie awake, listening to Clara's soft breathing, recalling every twist and betrayal. She knew the future held no guarantees, but she resolved to raise her daughter to value truth, resilience, and self-respect. Whatever happened with James, Elizabeth vowed that Clara would never be deceived or neglected. She carried the lessons of this tumultuous chapter like armor, determined never to be blindsided again. And so, the tale of the millionaire who thought his mistress was safely in a coma, only for his pregnant wife to discover the hidden truth, ends in a tenuous equilibrium. Lives were shattered, then slowly pieced back together. Sins were exposed, consequences paid. In the end, the only constant was the unstoppable march of life itself, embodied by a little girl named Clara Rose, who symbolized both a painful past and a hopeful tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster of deceit, betrayal, and ultimately hard-earned redemption. In the heart of Rosemore Manor, amid hidden bank accounts and a fateful coma, we discovered that even the wealthiest, most glamorous lives can be torn apart by secrets. James Harrington's lies caught up with him in dramatic fashion, nearly destroying his marriage and costing Cassandra Delgado her life. Yet in the silent refuge of a newborn's embrace, the seeds of healing have begun to sprout. We hope this drama serves as a reminder that the truth may hurt, but deception can be far more destructive. If you found yourself captivated by this journey, please give this video a like, share it with friends who love a good real-life drama, and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling stories. Your support helps us bring you the content you crave. Thank you for watching.